So industry trends that we've seen through 2024 that we see definitely taking shape more through the year of 2025. Number one is the increased competition with the growing number of boutique managers. And so how we've seen this happening is a lot of the smaller firms that we're working with, they're spinoffs from larger financial institutions, and they're very targeted and niche into different subverticals, sub-investment strategies, and really hammering that niche, whereas the larger organizations are having a hard time keeping all of those investment mandates in-house because now the fund manager or maybe the person that oversaw a certain strategy at an asset manager now spun off and has that very targeted fund and strategy that they're going after. And that's the type of parallel that we're trying to pull on here. And so with all the different buckets that you see listed here is that normally it's pretty hard to try to draw parallels to the subverticals of financial services. However, all of the subverticals within financial services are making a large investment in time, money, and resources into digital marketing for all of the reasons that I have listed here. And frankly, there's so much more competition than there was in the past. We've already mentioned the boutique fund managers. Real estate investors are going to market with very targeted offerings. Robo-advisors are eating up wallet share opportunities for millennial investors. And frankly, if you're not investing in digital marketing now, it will be too late far sooner than you're expecting. We are doing a ton of these projects for our clients right now. And again, that's the goal of this webinar, is to make sure that we are thinking seriously about the digital transformation that is happening in marketing and needs to take shape within the organizations that you are all in. Mainly being is my generation, the millennial generation. We think about investments, we think about investing in our future, and even client firms that we're going to work with to do all of that differently than our predecessors, the past generations. We have a couple statistics on that coming up, but to be very blunt, my generation and our generation right now doesn't care about the success that you had in the last 20 or 30 years, or even 100 years if you're some of those larger institutions. We care about what you know right now. Why should I be investing my money with you? How are you going to navigate through the current inflationary era that we're working through, this decade's high interest rates, which again, hopefully continue at least sustaining and hopefully going down. There's the uncertainty in the EU. There's the war in the Ukraine. There's that somewhat large and important election coming in November as well. And then on top of all of that, the growing gap in economic inequality. And those are only the few things that I've come up with off the top of my head that I'm thinking about all the time when I'm thinking about where I'm going to be investing my money. These are the types of things that you want to start thinking about as, again, across all of these pockets here, a lot of these new strategies and a lot of where growth is going to come for firms that historically had only worked with institutional investors, they're going after retail investors. You need to go after a retail investor to actually hit the revenue targets, the commitment goals that you have, close funds as you want to. And that's where the shift to digital is becoming extremely important, because historically when you were working with an institutional client, it was, here's my commitment, lock this up for 7 years. There might be an extension for another couple of years. 10 years later, here, this is your performance, on a yearly basis. This is your general performance in a spreadsheet. But there needs to be a shift to these digital channels so that we are providing a retail experience to not only our retail clients, but also to our institutional clients, because as technology is making it even easier to get in front of all of these firms, we need to make sure that every engagement that we have is making an impression that they say, this firm understands me, this firm understands my goals. And that's, again, what we want to make sure that we're uncovering here today. And that's what we're going to talk through as we go through the demo as well. Next, I just have a couple quick statistics, and then you're allowed to then hear from Aaron Steenhoven, who's far smarter and intelligent into all of these things than I am. First and foremost is on the left side, the computer-generated recommendations. 67% of millennial investors, again, my current generation, are expecting that as a basic component. Like, that is a barrier of entry. If you don't have that, if there is not an opportunity for there to be an AI recommendation or a chatbot that's answering my questions, it's a non-starter. That's double that of the generation immediately before me, and then, of course, my parents' generation with the baby boomers. So again, you need to be investing in this now, because this is where that great transfer of wealth that we've heard about within the wealth management industry, those things are going to start happening even further up market if we get into the institutional, private equity, venture capital, institutional. And then the same thing is happening in the real estate world, where now there's so many more strategies that are being deployed for retail investors, where a minimum investment can be as low as $50,000 or even $10,000, frankly, for some of those the crowd-funded strategies as well. So again, there needs to be a component where there is a computer-generated recommendation. And then, of course, portals, self-service portals. We have seen a massive increase in uptick in clients requesting investment portals, and it is directly related to the statistic that 66% of the next generation of investors are expecting this, again, as a barrier of entry. If there is not a self-service portal, if there is not a mobile app that I can go to and actually see what my fund performance has been, it's a non-starter. Again, almost triple of what the previous generations were expecting. So this is why we wanted to get on here and talk about this, and hopefully give you guys some ammo to maybe direct additional budget towards engagements like this, because again, this is something that we're seeing coming up in every different subvertical within financial services clients that we're working with. With this slide, Steenhoven, I'm going to put you on the spot, and I should probably actually call you Aaron since we're presenting in a webinar here. But Aaron, I know I talked through a lot in the past couple slides here. If we just want to think about the industry's reoccurring themes that you've seen with certain clients that we've been working with that maybe historically weren't thinking about digital marketing channels the same way.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. I think what we've been seeing a lot here lately in our financial services projects at Playdiv is the importance of, like you mentioned, kind of having that two-way open communication with your clients. So whereas in the past, most firms were just communicating deal tombstones, and it was kind of a limited one-way communication, right? Now firms are really stepping up to the plate to carry on those two-way conversations and really keep their clients and investors in the loop by providing them with updates and educational content, positioning yourself as an organization as an expert on the content side of things. So I'll give you more of a real life example. We recently worked with, and I also want to say, y'all bear with me today. I'm coming off a viral infection, so I'm trying to keep the frog out of the throat and the coughing spurts at a minimum, but just bear with me if any of that does transpire today. We recently worked with a client here at Playdiv that was a private equity firm. Going into the project, they weren't really doing any marketing at all. So they were strictly centered on one-to-one email communication that I believe they were sending out of Outlook, if I remember correctly. So adding a platform like Account Engagement was a huge win for them. It really allowed them to sort of modernize their firm. They were able to automate and streamline processes. And now they can run those educational campaigns, positioning themselves as experts in the industry, while they're also staying at the top of mind with their clients for any needs that arise. So yeah, I'd say that's kind of my answer there, George.
Great. And that from Aaron at the end there is the really important part to this, is that historically a lot of these firms weren't even doing anything from a digital marketing strategy. And the important part there is the educational component to marketing. Historically, if you're going after an institutional investor, there needs to be less of the education. Going after a retail investor, it needs to be this is why our products are the right fit. This is why our services are the right fit. So adding that retail component to your digital marketing strategy is an extremely important component to this. And that's, again, what we're going to go through here with the solution. So Aaron, I hope you had an opportunity to take a sip of tea and clear your throat a little, because I'm going to pass you over the next couple slides here.
I did. Awesome. Thanks, George. Yeah, so kind of segueing off of the content that George has covered so far, some of you might still be asking yourself, well, what is Marketing Cloud Account Engagement? So I want to kind of set the stage here on the next couple of slides. We're going to talk through what it is, how we feel like it can benefit you as an organization, and then we'll get into more of a hands-on demo. I always feel like it's very beneficial if you can see the whole process and see the technology in practice. So looking at this slide here on the left-hand side and kind of working from top to bottom here, I'm going to go through some of these things that are key components of account engagement. But account engagement, to set the stage, is Salesforce's native marketing automation solution that lives directly within Salesforce CRM that will help you find and engage lifelong clients, and it just helps you manage all of your financial initiatives right from within Salesforce. It's got that direct connector to Salesforce, and we're going to talk more about that as we get into the presentation today. We're going to talk about 4 key ways right now where you're able to sort of manage your full life cycle and then personalize engagement to your clients. So the first way here is it allows you to know your clients. Many asset managers or wealth advisors are also managing their partners, consultants, and intermediaries from within Salesforce as well, specifically when it comes to financial services. So it's not just clients that we're discussing here today, lots of different people involved. Because account engagement is natively linked to Salesforce CRM and basically just lives inside of it, it's a single source of truth, right? So it allows you to unlock all of your rich data, and it's all in one place. One of the key things that we hear from customers every day is just that they have so many disparate data sources, and trying to tie all of that together is a huge challenge. So account engagement is going to solve that problem for you. The second thing here is it's going to allow you to find and acquire new clients. So with account engagement, you can listen and learn what is top of mind for your audience. What are they interacting with? So you can then use those insights to create precise segments and targeted lists. It's all about targeting the right people with the right message at the right time. And then the third one is humanizing the moments that matter. So account engagement can help you orchestrate personalized journeys, or they're sometimes called drip campaigns, to help you build deeper long-term relationships with your clients and keep them engaged. But at the same time, you're also going to be reducing the manual efforts for your team. I think in 2024, all of us are wearing hats at an all-time high level right now and wearing multiple hats. And so I'm sure you can relate to that. And so, you can see here on the right-hand side, we've got a screenshot with an example of what an engagement studio program or journey looks like. And we're going to get into a more hands-on demo with that today and talk through some of the different use cases there. And then finally, account engagement, like I referenced a little bit earlier, it's truly the single place for all of your marketing data, rather than having to try to bring together multiple different systems and reports and dashboards in different systems. You can do it all in one place, and you're going to see that campaign performance. You're going to be able to track your ROI, or return on investment, and really just make more strategic decisions on what's working in your campaigns. And then moving to slide number 9. This will be the last slide we get into before the demo here. But just wanted to share a couple of different use cases for account engagement. So, primarily here, we're going to start on the left-hand side by talking about client acquisition and retention. But I do want to point out that account engagement is not just a tool that the marketing team can use. It's beneficial to the entire organization or team that you have, and can be used for other things besides client acquisition and retention as well. But first, looking at that lens on the left-hand side there, account engagement will, of course, give you all of the branding and awareness that you need to get your financial services out there. You can use it to attract and retain clients in a digital way. So you're able to set up and send out campaigns, track email engagement. How are people clicking on links? You can track all of that information. And then you can also send out batch and blast emails. That's something that a lot of you are probably familiar with, which is more of a newsletter type of send. But again, what we have seen in 2024 is that most financial services organizations are trying to up their game a little bit by having these always-on automated email journeys. So that, again, you're reducing that manual labor within your organization so that you can focus on the business pieces that matter the most, and not spending all of your time doing list management and sending out these campaigns. And then finally, here you can see that it will help you fill and nurture your client funnel. And then you can analyze the conversion points of how people are coming into the funnel, how they're engaging with your different services and offerings. And then from an operational lens, as we look to the right-hand side here to the other card, like I said, it's very helpful for client acquisition and retention, but it also does things like facilitating portfolio management or event management. So if you want to automate processes and email engagement and experiences for new clients, or it could be Existing clients could be advisors, asset managers, or whoever you have in your Salesforce database. Honestly, if it's in Salesforce, you can work with that in account engagement. You can send automated and personalized emails that will allow you to reduce the manual effort for your team. And again, because of that connection to Salesforce, you can do really cool things like create Salesforce tasks that will trigger to your team members based on someone's behavior. So for example, if someone were to fill out a form on your website or register for an event, you could have a trigger that gives them a call, depending on whatever that specific use case is or what you're trying to accomplish there. So lots of great ways that account engagement can help you as a financial services organization. And now I'm going to show you that, and we're going to hop into the live demo here. So I will grab the screen share. And then let me also just pull up my picture in a picture here to make sure that you are seeing everything. All right, perfect. Slide this over here out of the way. Great. So the first thing that you're going to notice here is if you are a Salesforce user already, if you're familiar with products like Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, whatever it might be within the Salesforce CRM, you're going to notice that this looks very familiar to you because it is built on the same Lightning interface that Salesforce Lightning is built on. Obviously, we have some different tabs here that you're not used to seeing in Salesforce CRM. And we're going to look at some of these, and I'll introduce a couple of these to you. And then we'll get a little more in depth on a couple of them today as well with the time that we have. But again, this goes back to the conversation earlier about having a sort of a single source of truth and having everything so neatly packaged and tied together to where you're saving time for your users, not having to log into multiple systems and not having to try to dig through data in multiple places and tying all of that together. You're actually able to see it all in one place and understand the full persona of the individuals that you're working with. So some of the tabs that I'm going to call out and take you through today on an introductory level is we have this dashboard here. We'll come back to this in a second. Prospects are important, right? So in account engagement, prospects is where you're going to manage and segment any prospect that you communicate with. And you can think of a prospect record as any contact record or lead record from Salesforce. So there's an actual CRM ID that will map down to a prospect in account engagement and stays in sync between the two systems. Now, those prospects can enter the system or in a variety of different ways. So they could either come in via a web form submission into account engagement and then trigger a sync up to Salesforce to create a corresponding lead or contact, or they could come in from Salesforce and do the same thing on the account engagement side. There's also CSV imports and things that you can do as well. And then campaigns, obviously a very important topic. So Salesforce campaigns and account engagement campaigns are connected via a feature called Connected Campaigns. And so there's a one-to-one relationship there, which is great because it also allows you to send engagement history metrics back and forth between the system. And you have all of that you can track in Salesforce. You can do all kinds of custom reporting. I'm going to show you some of the out-of-the-box ways that you can see engagement history or account engagement reports today as well. And just know that this is a demo org, so not everything I show you today is going to be populated. That's why we're seeing zeros here on this campaign. And then moving along to the automations tab, this is where we'll get into a lot of the fun stuff. You know, everybody loves Engagement Studio. It's kind of the place that people get really excited about working with the tool. And that's, again, going back to that always on email campaigns. We'll be talking about that a little bit. There's also some other automations that are available. It's a very powerful tool in terms of automation. We won't have time to get into everything today, but we'll spend some time with Engagement Studio. And then on the content tab, this is sort of like a content repository section. So any landing pages or web forms that you've created, you'll find that here. Any files that you're sending out in your emails, like if you're sending out white papers and things like that, this is where you'll upload those files. And then this is also where you can just stay organized. You've got folders and tags, which are labels in the system that allow you to filter prospects and do some reporting via those prospect tags. And then moving along the top here, we're going to go into reports. We'll spend a little bit of time here later, talk about some of the reporting. This is definitely an area where the leadership within your organization will probably spend a good chunk of their time and be very interested in seeing the effectiveness of your campaigns via some of these out-of-the-box reports. The settings tab, this one is more for the Salesforce admin amongst you, or those who are a little bit more into the technical and side of things and like to nerd out on the admin stuff. This is where you can really get in there. You can add users. You can find out-of-the-box connectors. You can connect things like social media, Google Analytics, or paid ads if you're running those. All that good stuff that you want to be a part of your overall marketing communication strategy. And then finally, email templates. We're going to talk about a couple of different options that you have with email templates, but we'll primarily focus on the new Lightning drag and drop builder that's available. And we'll get into that today as well. So going back to the dashboard, we are, what I can initially see right here on this first page, or I guess what catches my eye, is that we have this dashboard type of metric here that's showing us all of the prospects that have recently come into the system. So it's a great way for us to get a quick view into how many new prospects we have. You also are able to filter that. And again, a prospect in account engagement is a contact or lead in Salesforce. And then as we continue down on this page, we have a marketing calendar. So this is a great way for your teams to stay connected on what upcoming outreach do we have as an organization. You can keep everybody in the loop together. We can see here that on Thursday the 27th, we have a webinar invite email going out. And then up top, I do want to call your attention to, we've got a series of sends going out, it looks like here. And the reason for that is you can see we've got that little Einstein icon. So George mentioned AI earlier. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention this Einstein optimization feature that is available, that has rolled out recently with account engagement. This is allowing you to utilize past engagement data and different timestamps on when people have opened emails or visited websites in order to find the best time to email those people. And so the system, if you run it through the Einstein optimizer, will go through a process of determining for each individual prospect, what is the best time to send them an email. So it's very, very neat and very important as we talk a lot about AI these days. And then there's other things that could show up here as well. If you had added Facebook or LinkedIn social media connectors and you were scheduling posts through account engagement, those would also show up on your calendar, or you can just add manual events if there's other things you want your team to sort of stay in the loop together on. And then the other thing I want to call your attention to on this page really quickly is we're going to look at under the identified company section, we're going to go to more visitors. I talked earlier about how account engagement has website tracking capabilities. And basically what this means is you have the ability to track someone's IP address and see how they're navigating across your website. So the way this works is if someone visits your website that has a website tracking cookie before you know who that person is, and in account engagement terms, that means before you have their email address, the system is going to track them as an anonymous visitor based on the IP. The great thing is once they submit a web form and you have their email address and they go through a conversion process to a prospect, you're then going to also port all of the previous visitor activity over to that prospect record, which is great because then you can see what people have been interested in, and that can help drive your engagement with that person. And then keeping on the prospect line of thought there, we'll go ahead and transition to prospects. So again, this is linked up to Salesforce contacts and leads. And we're going to look at a kind of fictitious journey here with Mary Connors. We'll use her as our example. And I'm just going to take you through what you can see on a prospect record in account engagement. And then we'll also look at what you can see in Salesforce. So here on this first section under contents, we have some very basic information. A lot of this is what's going to be found on a web form typically. We have name, email, company, we have the Salesforce account name, and then we have the source campaign. So that's essentially where did Mary come from, or what was her first touch point with our organization. Continuing down here under the mailability section, we can see that the status has a little green envelope icon there and it says mailable. So that's telling us that Mary is receiving all emails that we send out. She's not currently opted out of our emails. If she was opted out of all emails, this opted out would be set to true. That field maps directly to Salesforce. And then in account engagement, the other nice thing, and one of the questions that we get a lot is, yes, you can get more granular than just an unsubscribe from all. There is a preference center that comes out of the box that you're able to customize, which is great. And it's a list level type of membership where your prospects can click to update their preferences at the bottom of your email that you send them, and then it takes them to a page showing all the different lists or newsletters that they're currently signed up for. And then they have the ability to go in and update which ones they want to be a part of. And we'll reference that back a little later when we look at emails as well. And then over here on the prospect activities section, so this is obviously a very important component. This shows Mary's entire digital footprint with our organization. So it's going to show any forms that she's filled out. You can see that you can filter by the type here. It's going to show any emails that we've sent to her. You can also see that there's a score associated with that over here on the right-hand side. We're going to talk about that in a second. And then, if we had website tracking cookies set up on this, we'd be able to filter by that as well. Files is another thing you're able to track very nicely within account engagement. So when you send out those emails with white papers or, talking the education side of things, positioning yourselves as an expert, you're able to track when people are downloading those files and what they're interested in. So to the scoring and grading piece, let's talk about that for a minute. So over here under Insight, you can see that she has a very high score, 802. Obviously, a score is a numerical figure here where we are tracking against the assets that a prospect is engaging with or that they've taken an action with. So it's typically things like submitting a web form, visiting a website, clicking an email link or opening an email, different things like that, or what's attributing to your score. Then you also have a grade. So we can see that she has a grade of B. So you might be asking yourself, what is the difference between scoring and grading? The easiest way for you to think about it is scoring is how interested someone is in you. So they're taking lots of activities with your content and showing that they are very interested in you as an organization. Grading is how interested you are in them and how much time should you ultimately spend nurturing a lead, or how much time should you invest in an existing contact if you're trying to cross-sell or whatever it might be. It's all about, again, we're all wearing so many hats. It's about targeting the right people and not spending time on everyone, because we all don't have that extra time floating around in our day to waste on people who aren't going to buy from you, ultimately, is what it comes down to. So scoring and grading is great. Scoring comes set up out of the box and then you can tweak it. Grading requires a little bit of strategy on your part, as you have to kind of figure out what is your ideal persona or profile that you're looking to meet. Always happy to help as questions arise on that topic. And then just kind of reconfirming to you here that you're also seeing some fields, right? So we've got some out of the box fields here under the additional field section, location, type of information, things like that. And then you can see over here, we've got custom fields. So just wanted to confirm to you that you can add any custom fields that exist in Salesforce, you can add to account engagement. And you can then use that data to segment your sending lists. You can also use any prospect custom fields to use on your web forms as a field on your web form, or you can use it as a merge field. You might know it as a personalization field when you're talking about email sending. It's like a dynamic piece of data that you're pulling into that email. And we'll talk more about that later. But here we can see that, again, this is a demo org, so I didn't create a ton of custom fields. There were some here already, and I added a couple. But just to give you some examples, you've got a Boolean field here that says attended event, yes. Got a budget field showing us our budget. got some funds of interest. We've got last investment amount, preferred communication type, product interest if you're a product-based organization or you have products that you sell. That can also come in really handy here as well. And then one other thing I want to show you up here on the top, I'll show you two of these tabs. I won't show you all of them for time purposes, but we do have a list tab. So this will show you on the prospect record which list is this prospect a member of. Some of these could be static lists, some of them could be dynamic, and I'm going to talk about the differences there in a minute. And then the audits tab is really great. So this allows you to see anytime a data point in account engagement has changed. This allows you to see that and figure out, okay, how did that change? Was it changed in the CRM? Was it changed in account engagement? Was it changed by an individual, or was it some kind of automation that I have running in the system? So this is just a great way to, system of checks and balances, validating why your data is changing, and a nice little audit tracking. It's also really great. I know we've all had those awkward conversations where a client has either called us or sent us an email and they were very angry because they've opted out of communications, right? We've all been in that situation. This will show you if someone opts out from all communications, that would show up here. You'd see that change to that opted out field. Or if they just opted out of one particular list, that would also show up here. So it, at least gives you some data. It's never an easy conversation to have if you're having to tell someone, well, I can see that you actually didn't sign it, unsubscribe from that list, but we can get that taken care of for you. But anyway, just wanted to show you this audits tab here as well. So that's on the account engagement side, but what about Salesforce? What can we see in the CRM? Let me pop this open. You notice that I just clicked, there's a little cloud icon because we are connected to a Salesforce record. We can click that, and it's going to take us to our contact record page here. So, just high level here really quickly. Obviously on the right-hand side, this is very typical Salesforce view. If you're used to working in Salesforce, you're going to see all of the great rich data information over here. Over here on the left, though, this is, again, sort of powered by AI and some of the newer products. It's worth a deeper conversation than what we have time for today, but this is a Data Cloud Customer 360 card. And it's really doing a combination of pulling in data and also using AI to pull in some of the information here as well. So you can see things like loyalty tier segment is high value, lifetime value, propensity to purchase is high, engagement scores 90%. So that's a really, really neat feature in there as well. And then obviously, Salesforce is as customizable as you want it to be. So all kinds of other things you can add in. But what if you are someone within the organization that's not specific to your marketing communications team, but you still want to see some of that data? Where could we see that? So that's where the engagement history really comes into place, because we can see how Mary has been engaging with us directly from her record in Salesforce. So we've got the actual metrics right here of what's happening, and then we've got a nice little dashboard here at the bottom telling us what activities she's taken over time. What campaigns has she engaged with? What content is she engaging with most? And then we have a nice little table view down here at the bottom. So that's just one of the many ways that you can utilize engagement history and see that directly within Salesforce. All right, moving right along here. So once we have all of our data, we have our prospects in the system, what next? So at this point, we're going to want to start talking about segmenting our audiences. So you can see here that we've got quite a few different examples of some of the different ways that you can personalize your communications. And this is one of the key things for all financial services organizations, is just prioritizing having targeted lists of people. It's so important to not invest too much time on sending to people that aren't going to buy from you. And also it's important for email deliverability. That side of things is often not talked about enough, but if you're just throwing a bunch of people on a list and sending them emails that you think are potentially relevant, but you haven't really vetted that out, you're not setting yourself up for success. So you can see there's all kinds of different options here, or examples of things you could do, like re-engaged leads, competitors, customers, hot prospects. I'm going to show you the past investors real quick. But first, actually, let me show you just one of these. So upcoming event nurture. If we click into this list, this is just a static list. It's not driven by any criteria. And what that means is in account engagement, you can create what's called a static or manual type of list where you have the control of adding people to the list or removing them at any time. So a common example of this could be, think of like an event. You do a golf event, a charity event, or a webinar. What we're doing today is a great example. So you have a specific list of people that you want to be on a list. That's a good use case for a static list. Or if there's other circumstances for why you would want to be able to remove people from a list. Typically, though, again, going back to all the hats that people are wearing and just reducing manual work and labor, we want to minimize the amount of time that our team members are spending on managing these lists or importing prospects from system to system. So what we're going to do is we're going to create what's called a dynamic list where we can feed the system certain criteria, and the system will consistently be running that against a prospect to see if the prospect matches that criteria. If they do, they'll be added to the list automatically. You don't have to think about it. If they ever stop meeting that criteria in the future, they'll be automatically removed. Again, you don't have to think about it. The system takes care of it. The system is accurate, and it reduces the amount of manual lift that's involved on your end. So just to kind of dig in a little bit deeper here on the power of these, what's happening here is we're looking at two different criteria. So if both of these are true, then someone's going to be added to the list. If their last investment amount is greater than 50K and their state is California, then they're going to be a member of this list. All kinds of other examples and things you can do. You can see here that there are tons of options for how you can add people to these lists. One of the other common examples would be which campaign they're a member of. So we could say if they're a member of the annual customer conference campaign, we want to add them to the list. You can also change your logic to or logic, and then you can also add what's called a rule group, which does and or logic here as well. So you can get as complex with your and or logic as you want. And then just quickly, I'll show you custom field this is where that custom field power comes in again as well. We could say attended event is true, and you could use that as a criteria. I think my keyboard went to sleep. There we go. It's working now. And then another custom field example I might throw out here real quick is going back to that funds of interest. Maybe we want to only pull a list that includes people that are interested in the Cumulus Energy Fund. So you can see the possibilities are endless in how you can better target and segment your audiences. So then once we have our sending lists in place, the next natural step is we're going to send out an email. So historically with account engagement, there was a WYSIWYG type of email builder that was available. It also gave you good access to HTML and CSS. So I'm just going to open this up really quickly to kind of show you what I'm talking about here. This one is still available in the interface. A lot of people are transitioning now to the new drag and drop builder, which is where I'm going to spend most of my time today. But if you're a team that is used to working with HTML and CSS, this might be the best option for you. It does give you a lot of access to that side of things. Or if you're someone who uses a third-party tool like BeFree to craft really cool-looking emails, and then you're importing HTML and CSS, this would be a good option for you in that regard as well. But for the example today, let's look at the new drag and drop builder. So this was as a result of customer feedback. Salesforce listened to customer feedback, and people were saying, hey, a lot of us are smaller teams of individuals that are not HTML, CSS savvy, and we need something a little easier to work with. And Salesforce really delivered in that regard and put this together. So this rolled out a couple years ago. They're constantly rolling out new updates to it as well. So if there's something in this and you're like, oh, I don't see this feature, likely it's on the roadmap. But I'm going to run you through and just kind of take you through a fictitious example here. This is a welcome email for a fictitious organization called Cumulus Capital. So I'm going to show you how you can edit and rearrange in the builder and just kind of give you some quick highlights, high-level things of how to use this. On the right-hand side, you can see things like the email template name, description, pre-header, and you can make some stylistic changes to the overall background and body of the email. So that's what's underneath all of these drag and drop components. And then you can see over here on the left, this is where we have our components. You've got button, HTML, image, rich text. You've got some column functionality, and then you've got a custom component for video, which is nice. A lot of people like to have the video option, add that to emails. So you can add that from the AppExchange. You'll see inside of the template itself, if I drag a rich text block over here, very easy for you to drag and drop those, move them up and down. And then we can delete that one back out because I've got a pretty good structure built here. The other thing before we get into the components themselves that I'll talk about is if you have done any HTML and CSS design in the past with email templates, you know that columns can be an absolute pain and a bear to deal with. But this makes it very easy. We can just drag our columns right in here, and then you can go in there and you can adjust column width and everything from right within the builder. So that's a huge benefit. And then within the blocks themselves, each of them have different options for the content and the style that they're going to allow you to do. So this one is an image specific one. The one you'll work with the most likely is the rich text here. So it gives you sort of a text editor similar to a WYSIWYG. And then you also have a source button that allows you to do some inline styling if you still want to do some of that for CSS purposes. And then the other one I'll call out here specifically is button. A lot of times you have to, in some email builders, you have to build out like a bulletproof button using HTML and CSS. Really nice that you can just drag the buttons on here. And the other thing I'll call out, very important in our marketing strategy, that we're adding links to our buttons and tracking what people are clicking on and what they're interested in. What else? Really quickly, touched briefly earlier on the out-of-the-box preference center. So this is where you set that up and you're able to add in what's called a merge field. We've got the update subscription preferences, which is linking to your merge field here for email preference center. And then there's one linking to unsubscribe also. But any of the data you have, this allows you to really personalize your emails to your clients based on what information you want to include to them. So very powerful there. Let's see. Yeah, I think I've covered pretty much everything. Just for time purposes, going to move on to the next step here. So you can see that email builder, very easy to work with, very functional. And then when we're ready to send the email, we're going to go into email content here. And we're going to kind of go through a validation process. So we're going to click preview as. And then continuing to use Mary as our example here. We'll throw Mary Connors in here. And voila, we can see that it has personalized the email with her first name. And then if we scroll down, we can see that we had some other stuff like year for copyright. And then we had the organization name and address there as well. Then when we're done previewing that, we can test the email out. Definitely encourage people to send out test emails. And then once you're done testing, you can activate it for automation or you can send it. So within the send, you have the ability to do everything you need to from a marketing standpoint. You can attribute it to a campaign. You can define what list it's being sent to. You can also add a suppression list. This is basically saying, I don't want this particular list to receive this email. And then account engagement's great about letting you customize who the email is coming from or looks like it's coming from. You can even do a general user, which doesn't have to be a real name or email address. So some organizations will do like a company mascot or put like a CEO name or something like that in there. And then you also have what's called a completion action, which is nice. This allows you to say, if someone clicks on this link in the email, I want to take an action. Maybe that's adding a tag or label to something, adding someone to a campaign or to a list, adjusting a score. Look how powerful this is. We talked about Salesforce tasks. You can add your subject. You can assign it to a specific user in Salesforce, put a priority on it, all that good stuff right from within a completion action on your email. And then when you're ready to send, you can go over here and click send now. You can click send later and schedule it, or you can do what we talked about earlier with the Einstein optimized AI feature. And then let's talk about automating that process. So that's more of the manual approach to sending emails, right? But Engagement Studio is kind of the belle of the ball. Definitely where where a lot of you will want to spend your time. So you can see, again, we've got some different examples, and Salesforce has some really good documentation floating around about some of the best use cases for this. But we've got examples like upcoming events, top of mind, product launch, Facebook webinar follow-up. And then the one I'm going to focus on today is, let's look at this education one. We've talked a lot about the importance of that today and positioning yourselves as experts in the field. So my goal here is to quickly go through this. I know we're short on time, but I want to just kind of give you a quick intro into the interface and then also what's going on in this program. Then we'll look at some reporting, and then we'll call it a day after that. So within the interface here, the first thing you have to do, obviously, is you need to select what recipient lists you want this to go to. And then you can add suppression lists, or you don't have to have suppression lists. You can also, another nice feature is you can set a time parameter of which days of the week and what times you send your emails. So that's nice as well. Within the interface, there are three main elements that you can add to the interface. We have actions, triggers, and rules. An action, quite simply, does something. It's pretty straightforward. So this is going to look very familiar to those completion actions we looked at. So you could do things like creating a Salesforce task, adding people to the list, adding to campaigns, notifying users, and then sending email. Like 95% of the time, that's probably going to be the first thing you do in an automated campaign, is send out an email. Then you have a trigger. A trigger listens for an event on the back end, so something that a prospect is doing. An email link click, or an email open, or if someone has clicked a link to download one of the files that you have, or if someone submitted a form. That's going to be listening to see if a prospect does that, and then creating what's called an engagement split based off of that. And then you have rules, which are, again, criteria similar to what you would put in your dynamic lists. So if you wanted to say, again, campaign is something, and then that would create a different type of split based on data within your program here. But there's all kinds of different options there too. You can use prospect tags, scores, grades, different things. So you'll see some real life examples of that here in a second. But basically what's happening in this program, this is an educational program. We're going to first send out an email called Competitive Landscape. Then we're going to put a trigger to check and see if someone clicks on the link in that email within 5 days. If they do click on the link, they're going to move down this yes path to the right. We're going to adjust their score by 10. If they do not, they're just going to go down the no path and rejoin. Now, you could add other actions here. Some of the actions that you might want to do here is maybe you want to adjust their score by -10 if they don't click the link. Maybe you also want to notify a user that they haven't been taking action. Different things that you could do there. But for the purpose of this example, we're keeping that side open-ended. And then once you rejoin down here, we're going to send another email. We're going to send the monthly newsletter. We're going to do the same kind of trigger here, and we're going to wait 5 days to see if they've clicked the link in the email. If they have, we're going to again adjust the score by 10. We're going to scroll down. We're going to send another email with a white paper download in it. And then we're going to set a trigger here to see if they have clicked that link, which is allowing them to download that file or that white paper. If they do, we're going to kind of kick it into gear here a little bit. We're going to adjust their score by 30. Then we're going to notify the assigned user, which is just the record owner in account engagement in Salesforce. And then we're going to add them to a list called upcoming event nurture. Then they're going to rejoin down here, and we're going to have some sales rep outreach before we get to the end of this program, right? Because we've identified that, okay, they're very serious about buying at this point. It's time for us to get a sales rep involved, have them reach out. And you can see here, for time purposes, I'm not going to go down the no path, but you can see that we're setting some other triggers here to see if they've viewed a landing page and doing some different things based on that. So you can see the power of this and how easily you're able to build it out. And then once you have these active, you can also report directly from within Engagement Studio. And we can see the amount of people that have entered the program is 124. That's also the amount that got the first email. And then we can see on this engagement split, which percentage went down the yes path, which percentage went down the no path. And then you can click in and drill down into this. So that for those of you who like to do CSV exports and have things in other places, that's possible. or you can select everyone that went down a certain path, and you can do things like, oh, I want to add a specific tag to this set of prospects, or I want to add them to another list. So very powerful, lots of things that you can do with Engagement Studio. And then as we close, just kind of tying it all together, wanted to just show you some out-of-the-box account engagement reports really quickly. So on this campaign tab, this is showing you your overall campaign performance. You can toggle some of the settings back and forth on x-axis, y-axis, different things like that. And then obviously, again, this is a demo org, so you're not seeing as much data down here at the bottom, but this is definitely an impactful report. And then we talked a little bit about funnel and lifecycle earlier, so just wanted to focus here for a second. This is typically, again, a favorite for executives and leaders within your organization. Just gives a quick pulse into how your funnel is performing and how people are moving through it. So from the time they become a visitor to when they convert to a prospect, to when they become marketing qualified lead, to then even more qualified as a sales qualified lead, and then to a one deal or closed one opportunity in Salesforce. So very beneficial for you to track each step of the life cycle and just see what's driving a successful campaign for you. And then there are other out-of-the-box reports here. The last thing I'm going to show you before we close here for time purposes is you can look at the different emails that you've sent out, and you can go very granular within account engagement. You can also do custom stuff in Salesforce, but this allows you to see delivery rate, HTML open rate. On the left here, you can see the total amount that are sent, and you can also drill down into those like we just did in Engagement Studio if you want to look at a list of those prospects. And going through these quickly, we've got click-through rate report, which is nice. I talked about the importance earlier of having links in those buttons and just kind of tracking the engagement that way. Now, again, this is a demo org, not showing any clicks, but you get the idea of what that would look like there. And then the interaction tab is really cool. This shows you the read rate, the skim rate, and how many times it's been forwarded. You can also see a glanced or on-read percentage as well under total engagement. And then under email clients, this gives you a client breakdown between Gmail, Apple, Outlook, Google. And the other thing I'll call out here is with the Apple Mail privacy changes, Account Engagement rolled this out and gives you a little more granular view into, okay, how many of these opens are actually potentially phantom opens, which I like. I like being able to dig into that with those privacy changes. So I know we're at time. I know I was fitting a lot into an hour. Really appreciate everyone joining. That's all I have, George. I'm going to flip it back over to you.
Very good. And I'm not even going to reshare because all it was just a thank you slide. So everybody, thank you. I know we're a minute over here. Steenhoven, thank you very much for the demo. We'll send you over some content from today's session as well, but appreciate everybody giving us an hour to walk through this. Hopefully you learning a thing or two, learning a thing or two about how you can use Marketing Cloud account engagement in your process. So thanks, everybody. Have a good day.